What's up, everybody? We are talking about performance and 1 billion users, but I thought it'd be a little more interesting to just talk about what's going on with all these chains. We got a lot of chains. We've got Monad, we've got MegaETH, we've got Polygon. So I'm excited for this conversation. I actually wanted to read a tweet from someone to kick off this panel, and I want to get your guys' takes. So we're going to talk about Ethereum before talking about your guys' chains. Here's a quote. The ETH pivot now has a tagline: scale the L1, scale blobs, improve the UX. If Ethereum can pull this off and buy back some credibility, this may be the beginning of the ETH revival. Agree or disagree with this?
I disagree with that.
You disagree?
Yeah. I think because of this current competitive pressure on Ethereum and the market's pressure, ETH as an asset is not doing that great. That is kind of pushing Ethereum into choosing two diagonally or orthogonally opposite choices. One is being a settlement layer which can provide securities to other layers and they can have execution, and the other side is being execution layer yourself. These are two very hard goals in a larger scheme of things. It's not about for 1 million transactions a day. I'm talking about if you have hundreds of millions of transactions on blockchain, there's no way that Ethereum can be the execution layer, or any chain can be the base execution layer. And on the other side, you have the store of value or BTC competition. I think Ethereum should stick to its basics, where it is the most decentralized, the most credible value creation and settlement layer, and it should allow the execution to be on layer 2. They should continue to be on the current strategy that they have, but they are somehow being pulled on the other side of the direction that no, you need to have execution on the layer, on the layer 1. I think is going to hurt in the long run.
Yeah, I disagree. I do think it is extremely important that Ethereum improve layer 1 performance and basically be a really performant hub with many spokes, but the hub itself needs to be much more performant than what we have right now. What we have right now is about 1 million transactions per day. That's it. It's such a small number, and it has not gone up substantially in spite of almost 10 years of Ethereum's history. What we need is a very clear focus on addressing bottlenecks in execution, addressing bottlenecks in consensus, adjusting some of the base assumptions of number of validators participating in consensus. Right now, there's 1 million virtual validators in Ethereum with about 10,000 actual physical nodes.
Yeah.
And that million is really slowing things down. It gums up the works. Like when you have to do a signature aggregation on 1 million signatures, it's super expensive. And there are just a lot of things that are not really optimized. So I'm really excited about the pivot in direction for Ethereum. It's really aligned with what we've been working on at Monad for the past couple of years.
Absolutely, that's a fair observation. But only thing for me is when you want the settlement layer. When I say settlement layer, the fundamental properties of that is it's not only is fairly decentralized, but you also want it to be sovereign resistance, that level of which only Bitcoin provides. If someday Bitcoin said that they are coming into the settlement business, or they put let's say OpCat and all that, and starts becoming a settlement layer for layer 2s, then Ethereum has a very serious competition, because in terms of the decentralization and the widespread the distribution of the nodes, where nodes are contributing into the security of the network, and which make it the sovereign resistant to that level. If a nation state wants to hold $100 billion on the chain, I don't think except Bitcoin and Ethereum, you would want to prefer any other chain right now. So I feel that that's a big value to have for Ethereum. And if they go into the execution route, then they will have to reduce the decentralization parameters a little bit. And especially when they have this big behemoth and they have to change into something completely different. Whereas let's say Monad, which is building from the scratch to be that, having as much distribution of the nodes, still being highly performant, I think it could be a very difficult goal to achieve, and we can be Ethereum can be in a place where there are nobody's
Yeah.
friend.
Sure, I see you smiling at some of these answers. So.
Yeah, I think the tweet itself was not saying anything that sacrifices decentralization, right? I think Ethereum's value proposition day one has always been 100% uptime. I think the tweet itself, I would actually agree with Keone because I think Ethereum has been lacking a focus and basically a one-liner, right? Like, what is this protocol for? And before you had all the research KOLs and influencers and talk left, right, and center. And you have social consensus, and no one understood what's going on. But I think what that tweet does is to rally people under this one goal, right? Scale layer one. And it's exciting. But I also think in the longer term, it does expose some sort of risk. Because I think Ethereum is notorious for execution. Ethereum cannot execute. So I think short term is a really good cry for rally, but if we can't execute this, I think it really poses a long term, very bearish signal.
Do you think, back to you, do you think this pivot or reprioritization of Ethereum is net beneficial to rollups and L2s, or is it competitive?
I think it's very beneficial. I think if ETH as a price, like an asset goes up, I think it benefits the entire ecosystem. Don't overthink it. ETH goes up, everyone is happy.
Sandeep, maybe you disagree?
Yeah, I mean, see, I mean, if it's the only narrative, what Shuyao is saying, and she's right in that they need to fix the narrative. I am 100% for that. Like, fix the narrative, and the token goes, Bitcoin or Ethereum goes up, the ticker goes up, and everything is fine. Then the ecosystem gets the positivity back. But I'm saying, like, what Shuyao said exactly proves my point, is that Ethereum is notoriously bad for execution. And if it takes Ethereum from 13 TPS to go to 100 TPS 5 years, you have like the other players like Monads and Solanas of the world, they will move from 10,000 TPS to 100,000 TPS. So it's kind of an unachievable goal almost at this point for Ethereum to achieve 100,000 TPS or even 10,000 TPS on layer 1. So why fight for that goal, which is very, very hard to achieve? Instead, focus on what you have, which is the settlement layer, and then, kind of this alternative store of value and all that, and focus on that. Like, I actually don't subscribe to the notion that, Ethereum, the worst thing that happened to Ethereum was it was like the better store of value and all that. It should focus on the best settlement layer and the best value creation layer instead of focusing on execution, which is not its core core area.
I think I meant execution as in like Ethereum has a chronic illness of not delivering, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
I'm exactly talking about that.
But hurt you for all these years that made you so bearish.
Well, I think it's important to come to Ethereum's defense a little bit. Like, it's quite exciting to see the clear message from Ethereum leadership about the priorities, which are layer 1 scaling, blobs. I think blobs are also a really important topic to touch on because, for the past couple of years, Ethereum has positioned as a data availability business and, encouraged layer 2s to build, but has not actually enforced the requirement that layer 2s use Ethereum for DA. And so now there's a bunch of, alt DA services, Celestia, EigenDA, Avail, that are competing directly with Ethereum. The rollups are using, layer 2s are using these alt DAs, but they're still using Ethereum's branding. So I think that'll be another interesting shift that I would expect is, and Donkrod has been pretty clear about this issue, that it's important for Ethereum to state the value prop that it's offering, and then also state the rules under which layer 2s can inherit Ethereum's branding and be part of the Ethereum ecosystem.
Keone, do you think we'll start to see some of the big L2s consider pivoting off of Ethereum? Especially if maybe blobs start becoming more expensive? And
Right, yeah. So I think that Ethereum is focused on raising blob bandwidth. The sort of conventional thinking was, this will take a while to happen, and so in the meantime, it's okay for layer 2s to use alternative services, but when this is ready, they should come back. And I think that the combination of setting clear ground rules about using ETH for DA, consuming the services that Ethereum provides, and also continuing to emphasize that ETH should be the token of for paying for gas on the L2. Those are both things that Ethereum needs to be very clear on, and that also I see being contentious among some of the layer 2s that are starting to crop up.
But I'm curious to get your guys' take on who is your main competitor, because in one sense, I think I could lay out the argument that some of you guys are actually kind of competing with Ethereum in a way. Others, I would say, I'm sure you guys think of someone like Solana as a competitor. Maybe Shuyao, I'm curious how you think about this.
Yeah, so yesterday or this morning, Anatoly just tweeted, he said, I'm not naive to think that Base or MegaETH is not my competitor, right? So I think even Solana thinks about MegaETH as a competitor. But I think from our perspective, the question is everyone, because the pie has now grown for the last few years, it's like those 20 app builders there, and then unless you're bringing new ones, you are competing with other chains in terms of developer talent. So I think to that extent, yes, you're basically competing with everyone. In fact, you're probably competing with a lot of the interoperability protocols. So that would be a very competitive angle if you want to look at it. But fundamentally, from my perspective, our focus has always been to bring in Web2 founders or new college graduates. So really trying to expand the pie. But if I were to be cynical today, then I agree with Anatoly. He's basically competing with everyone.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, with Polygon, what we have, we are focusing on the AG layer, which is basically a, cross-chain settlement layer, which is, essentially what we characterize it as is that it's kind of the backbone of the trustless internet, right? So I would say that in a very, kind of abstract way, that the competition we see is this trustful internet, and then how much can we bring infinite scalability so that we can be the backbone of this trustless internet that is being created. I see all of the blockchains, individual blockchains, whether they have 10,000 TPS, 100,000, or whatever, like the TPS, but these are execution environments or computers in my mind. And from Polygon's point of view, we see all of these blockchains really complementary to us in the sense that they are those individual computers or supercomputers in case of like Monad, MegaETH, and all. And then we want to be the connective tissue, and that becomes the trustless internet. So, I mean, right now, I don't see any individual, chain competitor to Polygon.
Yeah. Maybe pivoting topics, and we can stop talking about Ethereum so much. Thinking about what you're actually optimizing for, the preference of the user and the consumer in crypto so far, the last couple of years, tells us that they don't value decentralization maybe as much as we originally thought that they would. So you're starting to, you got Ethereum, then you go, and I think everyone knows, and maybe the latest iteration is Hyperliquid. And so you're basically trading off decentralization, but you're getting very good user experience, very quick, and things like that. How do you guys think about this evolution and like what kind of the end game of this looks like?
Yeah, I think that, I was watching the Vitalik documentary a couple weeks ago. It came out pretty recently. It's really good. Definitely recommend it. Yeah, it's great.
It's a bad documentary. I'm sorry.
You don't like it?
I thought it was good. But the point is, it's a reminder of the early days of Ethereum and the ultimate vision of disintermediating large middlemen. Like right now, all of finance flows through large payment processors, flows through banks. All commerce is flowing through a bunch of centralized services. And the original vision of Ethereum was that we can build a better way of doing this where control is not flowing through these centralized counterparties. And I think over the past 10 years, we've lost a little bit of that vision, but it's a good reminder that at the end of the day, there's so much value that can be created by creating decentralized systems with a credibly neutral, censorship-resistant, Byzantine fault-tolerant system through technology that enables this decentralization. And I think, nowadays there's been a trend toward, as you were saying, like data center chains or literal like single server chains.
Right.
And it's just really strained from the possibility of this decentralized network, a mesh network where we have a lot of finance all flowing through a system that is not controlled by one actor.
How do you think about this as a founder, though? Because so I agree with the vision, but also you see something like, I don't know, like it's like Fogo Chicago, Hyperliquid Japan, I think, right? Like, maybe it's a little frustrating as a founder building a chain.
When I was working at Jump Trading in 2021, I remember observing that a lot of the projects that were popping up were forks, basically. And the reason why that was happening was because you can launch a fork a lot faster than building something new.
Yeah.
And so, if there's a sampling bias, it's the same thing as like going to the gym and seeing that everyone is pretty jacked because there's a sampling bias. So I think that some of the chains that are coming to market very quickly are reusing existing technology, but that doesn't mean that we aren't, as an industry, producing new technology that does enable that level of decentralization.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, your original question was that, the decentralization doesn't really matter, right? And I think like the markets are very clearly telling that, UX matters, but still I feel that the decentralization started from Bitcoin's, beginnings. Like Bitcoin extremely decentralized, it's sovereign resistant, store of value and blah blah blah, right? Even the countries can't control it. But if you see for larger crypto applications, decentralization is a means to achieve three things: self-custody, trustless compute, and censorship resistance. With the advent of ZK today, you can literally have all three of these capabilities on your chain with a single server. You can have self-custody and censorship and trustless compute. Censorship resistance, only thing is you will not have real-time censorship resistance, but you can have eventual censorship resistance by forced transactions. So where I am seeing the world going is, and that's why like for me, trustlessness is now a bigger phenomena than decentralization. Decentralization is needed for Bitcoin or Ethereum or anybody who's trying to be the L1. But then for most of the other applications, the execution environment, as far as they are trustless, they are good enough, because the benefit of trustlessness is the users can actually see what was originally committed by the application provider. And if they are using large amount of finance, where is the finance sitting? Is it like what's the risk parameters and all that? That you can do with single sequencer, ZK-fied, layer 2s also. So trustlessness is greater than decentralization.
Thumbs up.
I think Sandeep just nailed it. I think just the word decentralization has to be banned, I think, going forward, because it is a heavy word. I think from our perspective, we outsource the censorship resistant, the security to Ethereum mainnet, and we remain as a permissionless chain. And that is pretty enough for our builders for now. To me, I often think about Hyperliquid, right? Like, I think everyone has seen the Hyperliquid success, and they were like, all these flaws, but then the product is really good. But I think deep down, Hyperliquid was like the decentralization mattered very little because of the wealth creation effect, because of the some permissionless nature in it. And I think there's like a lot of things we can innovate upon Hyperliquid. And I think Ethereum's historical mistake has been, rather than making incremental improvement, Ethereum think about a World War III technology, right? So you're actually missing how to onboard the next 100 million users. Like if you can't onboard the next 100 million users, you can't onboard the next 1 billion users. So I think our recommendation has always been like, take meaningful trade-off, really focus on performance, and outsource decentralization to whoever does it the best.
Yeah, sure. Maybe we can actually keep talking about MegaETH, because you guys have done a better job than most. We've been talking about the user, but maybe talk about the founder and like the application developer and what you've seen that they are trying to optimize for and what they actually want right now.
I don't think I've done a good job. I think Sandeep has a proven record of doing a much better job. Our chain is not on mainnet yet, but
well, you're doing a good job with the new college students.
The new college, yeah. I think what founders really want is people to use their products. There's really nothing else. That's why I don't believe Grant does any job in terms of onboarding Web3 builders at all. I think what we've been doing is to inspire builders to build things that's novel, that's creative, and more important, that actually leverages crypto, right? We are very much against forkware. We're very much against well, in general, forkware, or copying other people. But yeah, so I think if you really inspire young builders and allow them to do things outside the box, that's really important. And if I may add one more thing, is MegaETH is known as ultra low latency as a chain. So what we're trying to do is to work with builders who want to build applications that require very low latency chain, right? So I'm not interested in building an AMM on MegaETH. Like, I think Monad would have amazing AMM. I think Ethereum layer 1. And what I really wanted to do is a freaking fast club. So I think you have to be very focused on the type of use case that you're going after.
Yeah. Sandeep, what do you've got more battle scars than most when it comes to applications actually building on the chain, and you've seen a lot of stuff like Polymarket and a lot of other ones. What are some of the lessons learned from actually like trying to scale some of these applications to tens of millions of users?
Yeah, I mean, one of my realizations have been that I mean, you need like as much scalability. If you are an execution environment, what MegaETH is trying to be, you need as much scalability, you know, as you can, because the gas fees needs to be extremely low. What I have seen is like Polymarket is now very big, right? But before that, there have been multiple applications, and what happens is like the moment they start exploding, suddenly they start asking for gas grants. Their users are saying, I'm paying too much gas and all that. And that's what gave me, you know, kind of early insights. And that's why we pivoted fully into the ag layer, is that eventually the moment a particular application starts becoming big enough, they want so much capacity that the shared chain or a general purpose chain is not good enough for them. So they want to graduate into their own dedicated environment where they have local fees and all that, all those kind of things. Like, you know, they have the local fees, dedicated capacity, they can prove, approve the SLA and all that. And that has been my, kind of understanding, that the general purpose chains will become some sort of liquidity hubs where large amount of liquidity is there, but most of the application activity will move into these dedicated execution environments. That is what I am seeing and what I think that is going to happen.
I think that it's really important for builders that they're in an environment that is succeeding, in an environment where there's growth in users, where there's growth in economic activity. At the end of the day, it's the worst feeling in the world to be working really hard, building something amazing, but then feeling like you're in a tiny pond that's drying up. And I think what's most important, like my singular focus is really helping to grow the crypto space. And I'm doing that by helping to bring some technology to the space that could support a lot more users. But beyond that, it is about bringing optimism and a sense of hope and a sense of excitement back to the crypto space. Like, we're all kind of beaten down right now. It's a little rough out there. And it's okay to acknowledge that, but it's also okay to just focus on making sure that the ecosystem is experiencing growth. And I think that's the best way to support builders, in addition to all the other things that all of us here are doing.
I love that. It's a good message, Keone.
It's a good message.
It's a good message.
It's good opium.
What is your, Keone, what is your sense, if maybe I'd love to get all your guys' take on this, your most, because it's kind of, you can kind of feel it at this conference. It's like, there's optimism, but it's kind of like everyone's kind of searching for a narrative in a sense as well. Like, what is your sense of what the next 12 months will look like?
I think I'm actually extremely excited about the next 12 months, because I feel like, there's been a bit of a reckoning where, collectively we've realized that meme coins are, while they do onboard users, they also like, they're very unequal in terms of the wealth effect. And we're kind of beaten down from that. We've acknowledged, as within the Ethereum community, that there needs to be more focus on scaling the L1. And it's just, like this focus that we can bring to this industry to resolve these problems and really bring applications on chain that are onboarding a lot of users.
Yeah. Sandeep or Shuyao, do you?
Yeah. In terms of like the hope and optimism, I hope that, and my analysis is that in the macro markets, like the peak chaos is already behind us, and we have seen like a big bout of global chaos. But I think now there will be less propensity to do like that kind of chaos, and probably the bottom is in bottom is behind us, and probably in the next 6-8 months we will have this kind of sideways and all that sideways movement in terms of the. I'm talking about, it's not a financial advice, but I'm thinking in terms of market, because the biggest problem is the liquidity in the altcoin markets, right? The liquidity in crypto is mostly now sitting on Bitcoin and all that, and due to that, altcoins it's been really bad time for the alt projects. And I think like end of this year or early Q1, probably like the Fed starts pivoting into the reducing the rates and all that, more liquidity comes into the market, and I think that optimism will start coming back. In that time, hopefully we have more, we could get like more applications like Polymarket and what Hyperliquid is doing on the consumer side, and like, I mean, as an exchange and all that, and more dexes, more clubs, and more lending, borrowing and all that. And hopefully we get, and with this tokenization also, hopefully we start getting some network effects. But the biggest kind of like deliverer of crypto can be stable coins, which is getting immense traction. Every government is looking into it and all that. And hopefully we will have the next wave of users joining this thing.
Shuyao, we've got 30 seconds left. So last predictions for the next 12 months or thoughts?
Oh, a lot of thoughts, because give me 30 minutes. I found it very difficult to answer this question because I thought this conference has been pretty optimistic. It's a lovely region, a lot of support. Even DAS, right? Your conference was fantastic. Met a lot of institutional folks. I think the only conference that was so bearish and depressing was ETH Denver, because no one liked Denver and no one liked ETH, right? so I think to that extent, there's really, I mean, I've been a builder for 7 years along with these people. There's really no bear market when you are focused on building and shipping things. I do think some of the bearish thought there was a reflection of certain ecosystem and narrative. But it's really not relevant to everyone who's sitting here, right? And a lot of times it's not relevant to me. Like Solana has been doing extremely well for the last 3 years. So I think my departure word would be focus on things that make you optimistic and hopeful, and basically turn blind to things that's bearish.
It's an amazing message. Thank you, everybody. Thank you, guys.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.